Right, looks like the live stream's up and running. And this is Moshe coming to you from Israel in the Galilee. Cold day today again, raining during the night, but we do need the rain. And we're on Tuesday, the 16th of December, and it's about 10 minutes before 8 o'clock in the morning. Rough cut on the, well, that's about where it is on the time. Now, the weather, 54 degrees. That's very cold for us. Remember, we're used to it being 40 degrees warmer. So it's cold for us. You know, if you're used to 70 degrees and it's 30 outside, it's cold to you. This is similar. Of course, it's not freezing or anything like that, right? Okay. So we're going to have, by a little, well, I think it already started, sunshine, I should say, most of the day, some cloudy, and I'm thinking my weather report is saying no rain. It's a high of 61, so that's cold. The dogs like that, though. And tomorrow, a high of 60, sunny, and then sunny again, sunny again, sunny again, and then Sunday, they're, no, still just cloudy. And my weather report is not showing any rain for 10 days. Now, we didn't get enough rain to cover us for the season. And the crazy thing is we're going to have lows of the 40s, and we're going to have highs only in the low 60s. So it's going to be cold. This is the bad time in Israel. Now, some of you people that are used to a climate like, New York, Chicago, Canada, North, Scandinavia, northern like the UK, it's not that bad for you people. If you were visiting here, you'd be pretty good shape. But if you come from the south of the southern states or Central South America or any place where it's warm, it'll be bitter weather for you. We get a reasonably decent shot of tourism reasonably decent shot of tourism now. Well, yeah, just about starting now. So a lot of them celebrate the pagan holiday, Christmas, and they put pagan idols up like Christmas trees and things like that. And they come to Israel and they go to Bethlehem and Jerusalem, and they try to play Christmas in Israel, which is pretty hard. I personally have never seen a Santa and or his reindeers on a lawn or a rooftop ever in Israel. I don't know of anybody that, I know that there's Christmas trees in parts of Israel. Generally, it's an organization that put it up. So the Catholics will put it up. Maybe the Greek Orthodox or the Russian Orthodox Church will put it up. The Baptist Church, the Assemblies of God Church, they'll put it up. Because they basically play the pagan game. But I don't remember. I'm sure I was in Jerusalem and saw them, but I don't recall them. In my village, not going to see it that I know of. Now, the menorahs for Hanukkah, which is not a biblical holiday, uh, the synagogues put rather large electric menorahs on the roof of their synagogue. I mean, these things can be maybe 3 or 4 feet high and 5 or 6 feet long. Some of them could be 7, 8 feet and 20 feet long, you know. So they vary to the size of the synagogue, and they, throw the light every day for an extra candle and that sort of nonsense they do. I don't partake in it. I don't, they're celebrating a miracle that we have no idea if it ever was real and ever happened. They say it did, and I'm not going to take their word for it. I don't think they're credible, so I don't bother with it. Anyway, the mention of it is in the Bible was Yeshua said it was their festival, the festival of weeks. Him and the apostles never observed it. If it was a biblical holiday back then, there would have been offerings and sacrifices for the priesthood at the temple, and that didn't exist. So I'm rather confident that it's just some noise you can ignore. That's what I do. I don't pay attention to it. It's not a national holiday in Israel. The government stays open during the whole Hanukkah stuff. They don't shut anything down. Now, I think the ultra Orthodox would have a holiday over this, but they have holidays like you probably never heard of, where they go out and burn wood. What are they doing? Burning their sins? Who the heck knows? All right, enough on that. So let me go into the live stream and see how it's doing. We'll do news today, and then we'll do some Bible. There's not anything that great in the news. There are a few things worth going over. There's not anything that great in the news. Okay. Indonesia, hey, we don't get many people from Indonesia. Okay, I'm going to put a post up in the chat very quickly. It'll take a few seconds.
Does not belong out here.
Okay. And I'll pin this up. And there it is. I got it. Okay. Let's see if people coming in. Yep, people coming in. All right. So, being a Bible believing site, Old and New Testament, we'll do some praise, which is rarely ever done. There is no God like Jehovah. 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 There is no Messiah like Yeshua. 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 Okay. So we haven't seen anything going on with Venezuela and America, have we? No. Um, there were reports very recently of refueling tankers flying around the coast of Venezuela and fighter jets by the coast of Venezuela. And Maduro's not moving. Uh, I don't think there's any serious negotiations going on. Nothing has leaked out. He was supposedly doing something with Qatar, but Qatar would, if there was anything going on of any vague substance, what Qatar would have done is gone public with it to put pressure on Trump to not attack. Like, oh, we're negotiating with, Venezuela, and it looks really encouraging. We think we can make this thing work and a ceasefire. Nothing. So they're not doing anything. Maduro did accuse that, what is it, Tobago and Tonga, I think, Caribbean country, island, that is as close as 7 miles to Venezuela, as being an enemy siding with America against him. The logic is that they're letting America use their country for a base, military. It's a good point. Will he attack Tobago? Nah. Will he threaten them? Well, I think he already did, but I don't think he'll attack them. Netanyahu made an interesting move again that other presidents would rarely ever do. And he declared fentanyl, the drug, as a terrorist weapon. Now, they say that's so he can attack Venezuela, but I don't know. Maybe Trump is still scared and looking for more grounds to attack. He says it kills a few 100,000 people every year in America, which is more than a bomb would do. So he calls it a terrorist attack. Actually, I don't know how many people die from fentanyl. I really don't. It's probably a reasonable statistic, but the oxycodone that they were handing out like candy to ex-military veterans of the military, and they were dying from that. The oxycodone had a very strong track record of getting people dead. I don't know exactly. I think that it's very heavily addicted, and it's probably the type of drug that you can build up a resistance to rather nicely. So the way the classic addiction would work is the first few times you take it, it's going to be really effective. And then maybe a week or 2 or 3, depending on you and your body and what's wrong with you, it's not so effective anymore. So then you try to increase the frequency of the doses, and the doctor may work with you and he may not. It's been my experience that most of the countries in the world, the doctors are not afraid to give people adequate medicine, a pain-killing medicine, to keep them comfortable. The big exception to that is America. I I can't tell you how bad that place is. It's so bad. I mean, why they do this, I have no idea. The reason you'll get back is, oh, people sell these pills, you know. I would think a pharmaceutical oxycodone pill is probably at least $10, maybe $20, $30 today. So if the doctor gives you a prescription for 4 a day, and you could go on 2, you could sell 2 and make a living off of just selling the extras. The chances of you getting caught are relatively low. The drug police are not looking for somebody that sells a couple of extra pain pills they get from their prescription. I mean, if they had a chance to bust them, they probably would. And then I think the only thing the judge would do is put them into therapy. Probably give them probation while they take a course, where the course would be how to control the use of the oxycodone or something to that effect. And it probably takes 6 or 8 weeks, and when they complete the course, their probation's over. That'd probably be what they would get called, a diversion program, you know. Fentanyl is a very unusual drug, not like oxycodone. What happens with oxycodone is they take several doses of it, and they're in a fog all the time. Okay, and then after a while, like many months of being in a fog or years, their brain goes off. They don't think straight anymore, and a lot of them wind up overdosing. You know, they're on it all the time. They don't think straight. Their memory's shot. They don't remember how much they took. It's not that they're sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to kill myself right now. Is they don't remember what they took, and they wind up killing themselves. Fentanyl is the drug of choice for anesthesiologists. Okay, those are the doctors that put you to sleep when you do surgery. Now, some anesthesiologists have decided they want to open up a pain management clinic. They hold themselves out as being the experts of pain management. Well, I think that's a falsehood. I'll explain why. Their predominant job is to put people to sleep for a surgical procedure. Putting you to sleep is, if they put you to the twilight thing where you're just slightly under, that's one thing. That's not so unsafe. It's not great for you, but it's not that unsafe. If they put you down deep, then you're basically paralyzed. That's the truth. And then you got to come out of it. All right. So they don't have much experience in working with people that have all the time pain from an accident, a war injury, a disease, surgeries, whatever, right? So they don't have practical application of treating patients and keeping them functioning. Where does that have? They don't have that, right? So the guys that are treating cancer, orthopedic surgeons, maybe lots of other people are treating real pain, you know. Uh, and they probably have a much better handle on it than the anesthesiologist. But some of them start these clinics; they can make good money, and they're pill pushing. In the old days, before they came out with the drug laws, see what they did. This is how the American government operates as dirty dogs, because they're Satan bots, dirty dogs. So to protect the people from being drug addicts, they made a law making it a law that people had to go to a physician to get a prescription or permission, you might say, to get narcotics. Previous to that, and this is in the 1913, 1916 era when they did this, previous to these laws, you just went to a pharmacy store. They had pharmacy stores. They would sell things like bicarbonate of soda for an upset stomach, which, by the way, works faster and better than any of these stupid stomach remedies they have. And it's dirt cheap. They can't patent it, you know, so it's dirt cheap, and you could buy a box of the stuff that'd be like a 5 or 10 year supply or a 15-year supply for a whole family, you know. Pepto Bismol works, but not as well. Um, okay, so you were able to go to the store and buy cocaine, heroin, marijuana, various opioids, and opium itself. So, what would the real system of. I put some heavy cream in my soup this morning and it really tasted a lot better. Um, what would the real pain management look like? Well, you would chew coca leaf, which is cocaine, comes from that. Then when you start making it into a powder, you got to use microwave ovens and a lot of chemicals, and that becomes a kind of a dangerous thing. You can't buy pharmaceutical cocaine powder. Um, that would be um, less harmful, but the real way to use it, which would reduce the addiction tremendously lower, would be to chew coca leaf. It would still have addicting qualities, but nothing like the synthetic garbage does, right? And it's not going to hit you with this jolting, like when they stick the needle in and, 2 seconds, 4 seconds later, boom, somebody threw the switch on, Or if they put it up in their nose, it's similar, maybe 30 seconds and a minute or 2 minutes later. They start to feel the effects, and then it continues to increase as the stuff absorbs through the mucosa and the sinuses. All right. But with the coca, it just, you chew it, and it has a anesthetic effect. Now, it's not necessarily going to be enough for all the people all the time. It depends what your problem is, right? But it does have a, for instance, women would take it for menstrual cramps. Okay, they chew the leaf for menstrual cramps. Okay, now they sold cocaine syrup, which is called Coca-Cola today, or Pepsi Cola. I guess it was the same stuff, although I think Coca-Cola was the actual one that they had, and it was a syrup that tasted like Coca-Cola, some sort of caramel thing. It wasn't carbonated; it was a syrup. And if you wanted to make it into, you could take, carbonated water and put a teaspoon or a tablespoon or whatever in it and stir it up, and you would have yourself a soda with cocaine. But again, the real cocaine would be chewing the plant, and that would have the least addicting effect on you. Okay, and so if it stops menstrual cramps, it's going to stop a certain amount of pain. So my point is, people would be able to run around most of the time during the day with the cocaine, okay? And it would be enough for them to function. And when they go to sleep at night, it pain tends to be more disturbing when you go to sleep, okay? So then they would sell pills called heroin pills. But that is a mistake because that's a heavy synthetic that's going to addict you. What you would want to do then is get opium poppies, and they make an opium, I don't know what you call it, a paste or a tar, um, and you chew it. You get a little piece and you chew it. And it gives you the sedative effect. So you'll get sleepy and it'll stop the pain. Okay? Now, the other ways they used to take it is they could take that paste and put it in a pipe and smoke it. That wouldn't be that bad. The other way they took it is with an insufflation, which is a nice way of saying an enema. And that was a very popular way of doing it. I don't know why, but they did it. Now, it used to be, if you went back 40, 50 years, they used to sell people that were in very bad pain, not necessarily a terminal illness, in very bad pain. How could you have very bad pain? Well, a war injury from shrapnel, bullets, whatever, right? Accidents on the job or auto or other kinds, skiing or whatever, right? Um, Rotten surgery results, which is very common, that leaves you in pain. Uh, and then there's also, dread diseases that people have that are very painful. So what they would do is they would give them a concoction that was made from cocaine, and they didn't use heroin because doctors are not allowed to use heroin. It was cocaine and morphine. They would put the two together. And that would get people through the day. And then when nighttime came, they would just take the morphine and not take the cocaine with it. Cocaine is generally a rather quick acting thing. It doesn't last 8 hours or anything like that. So they would take the cocaine with the morphine, and it would keep them awake and functional during the day. Now, this is for people that are really, really in bad shape. This is, Now, of course, your drug addicts would love nothing more than to have medication that consists of cocaine and heroin, and they could just take that all the time. They'd probably like it. All right, so anyway, fentanyl is the anesthesiologist's addict drug of choice, has been for decades. If the anesthesiologist is going to take drugs, they take fentanyl. Now, how can they get away with taking drugs? Well, it's pretty easy. Most of them don't have a uh, a nurse or anything like that. They will travel to operating rooms in hospitals and sometimes in practices of doctors that do surgery in their own operating suite, like podiatrists, foot surgery, orthopedists do some sort of, minor surgeries in their office, plastic surgeons, dermatologists, they could do chemical peels, they could do that stuff where they sand the skin down to get rid of acne scars, a lot of procedures. And you might see ophthalmologists have anesthesiologists come to their operating suite. So there's a number of people in medicine that do this. Um, it's quite popular. People like it because they don't have to go to the hospital, and they go in the morning and the doctor does the surgery, and they stick around the office for a few hours till they sober up, and the doctors check them, and if they think everything's good, they get them to go home, which they would insist that a friend or relative will come and get them and take them home, and then they insist the person doesn't stay by themselves at night and all that other stuff, right? So that's what they do. They take fentanyl, and how do they do it? If they're in the hospital, they're being watched with nurses, and it's a little bit difficult for them to do it there. When they go to a private doctor's office, they bring a box with them that normally is made of fishing. It's a fishing tackle box. A fisherman would use it for his flies and lures and ropes and all the line and all that stuff, right? And that's the boxes they use, and they put all different kinds of drugs and stuff, whatever they're going to need for the surgeries they take with them, right? Um, and So what they do is, if they're going to use fentanyl, which is often used, they'll they'll write in their log they're giving the patient 3 cc's and they give them 2. Then they'll write in, I gave them, or they might write, well, I gave them 50 of fentanyl and they gave them 25, or they gave them 75 of fentanyl and they gave them 50, and they build it up. And the reason they like fentanyl is they inject it, they take a break, and they're in between surgeries or they're finished for the day, and they're addicts, so they go someplace and they shoot up the fentanyl, and for, I don't know, an hour or two they're stoned, right? And then the fentanyl wears off quickly and mostly gone. So when it wears off, you're functional again. It's like the only get high drug that they use that is this way.
We had a water outage.
What, the community?
There's an announcement, it doesn't say, it just says for an hour at least.
Oh, okay. So they they can save up enough if they're doing, 2 or 3 cases and the cases are 2, 3, 4 hours or something each, they could save a good amount of fentanyl and get themselves pretty loaded. And when they're in the doctor's operating suite, the doctor is doing the surgery, and the doctor has a nurse or some physician's assistant or somebody that's assisting them in the surgery. So they're watching the surgery, and the anesthesiologist is sitting there watching instruments. He's usually sitting by the head of the patient on a stool, and he's watching instruments and making sure that the guy's oxygen level or the patient's oxygen level and heartbeat and all this stuff is where it should be. And if he's not giving them enough anesthesia, what happens is the blood pressure goes up because the person, although they're asleep, is feeling pain and discomfort. So when they see that happen, they administer more. You know, they're pretty. Look, it's like, when you look at how does a pilot fly a big jet with 300 people in it, it looks mystifying. How the heck can he do this? He's 4 or 5 stories up in the air in the cockpit, and but when you train for years and you learn how to do it, you do it. And that's with the anesthesiologist. So they basically, paralyze the person. And it's pretty hard to understand how they do it, but they do it. And they know what they're doing. Not telling you it's a good idea to have surgery. I think it's a terrible idea. Doctors, if you talk to them, I've got in the family a lot of doctors, and they'll all tell you that you should never have surgery unless things are really bad. That doesn't mean you're dying. It can mean other things, but they avoid surgery like the plague because in their training they know that every now and then somebody that shouldn't die dies in surgery. So it's obvious. So that's where the fentanyl usage got popular, was the anesthesiologists that are addicts were using it. And then some years ago the public got used to it, and they started thinking it was really good. Now, they used to come out, I guess they still do, they have fentanyl lollipops. They'll give that to somebody where they suck on this lollipop, like strawberry or vanilla or chocolate or whatever, right? And it has a dose of fentanyl in it. But it's slowly administered because they keep licking the lollipop, and then it reduces pain for them, They've got all different kinds of ways to give people fentanyl. Now that's not for somebody that's surgery, related. It's somebody that's got chronic continuing pain, Now sometimes a person has chronic continuing pain for 2 weeks or 4 weeks as a result of a surgery, and they'll do that. But most of these people that are taking any kind of narcotic because they're recovering from a painful surgery are going to want to get off this stuff. In the early days when the pain is really bad, they want the drug. But when the pain starts subsiding, they don't want to be groggy and drowsy and sleepy all the time. So they want to get off it and take less and less. You see what I'm saying? An addict doesn't want to get off it. Do people become addicts that really don't have an addictive personality? Generally, no. What the doctors will tell you is people that are in the hospital, they get them addicted to morphine because they got to give them morphine every day. And the person might be in there for 6 or 8 weeks because he's having 2 or 3 procedures. And when it's over, the person's addicted, and they reduce the morphine as the pain goes away, and they take the guy off the addiction, and doesn't even know it. Nobody even knows what happened. The person, see, that's the person that is normal. They view these drugs as a pain in the neck that you got to take when you get a root canal or you get surgery, but the experience stinks. They get no pleasure out of it. Okay, they get pleasure out of not having the chronic pain. Anybody would. But anyway, so Trump made fentanyl a terrorist instrument, and that's apparently what they were making in Venezuela, and he intends to use this to open up some sort of license where he's destroying terrorist weapons. So he makes his own executive order and then goes ahead and uses it to attack Venezuela. You know, go figure. Are they going to blow up about that? I think so. I mean, he's got a point, you know, but the people are not deploying the fentanyl in America as an act of terrorism. They're deploying it for economic gain. That's what they're doing. Drug dealers get so wealthy so fast, your head will spin, you know. And the big problem they have is, how do they spend their money? If they're going to stay inside a drug dealing country like Venezuela, they could go buy a 100-acre estate with a 20,000 square foot house and put it in some anonymous bearer share corporation in that country, and nobody asks questions and da da da. You know, they get away with that. And they could buy expensive Mercedes or Ferraris and stuff like that and get away with that. But if they start going out of that country, things can get very dangerous for them, you know? So they don't know what to do with their money. So they go through buying expensive watches and rings and necklaces and diamonds, right? They get a big house, they get a bunch of expensive cars, they buy, you know, expensive clothing, you know, expensive furniture, you know, and they got all that stuff, and the money keeps rolling in. You know, you could be talking about a not so high level dealer taking in $25 million a month. So, you know, he can buy himself a jet and fly around in Venezuela. But if he goes to other countries, it's getting dangerous. Well, he could go maybe to Colombia, Brazil, Bolivia, you know, certain countries, Chile maybe, I don't know, you know, certain countries he can get away with going to, but he's got to be careful. Same as he goes out and buys himself a 90-foot fishing boat, you know, which is basically a yacht. And he could go take day trips and go fishing with it for sure. And he could buy himself a yacht, you know, a 250-foot yacht, but where's he going to go with the yacht? You know? A really big drug deal is going to make a couple of $1 billion, maybe 3, 4, 5 more, or more $1 billion a year. And then it's just somebody with a big network, maybe 300, 400 people are tied to this. They got lawyers, and you know, they operate in many countries, and you know, they've been doing this for many years, and they're controlling their government, and they're very wealthy. So the fentanyl, I believe, is driven by money, not terrorism, but could be. I think the Assad was making fentanyl in Syria. So Assad, they're telling you now he's an ophthalmologist. No, my understanding was Assad was actually an optometrist. In other words, a refractionist, the guy you get fitted for glasses and contact lenses with. And he's spending his time in a community, I forgot the name, in Russia that it caters to the wealthy, like the Beverly Hills or Cherry Hill, New Jersey or something, where just the wealthy people live, right? And he's there and keeps to himself. He's learning, there's family members with him, and they're learning Russian. It's been a year now, so he probably does know Russian to some extent. And they say he's studying ophthalmology and he wants to practice that again. Well, that's a little bit stupid. I don't see who's going to go to him, and it'd be a security nightmare because every time a patient comes in to see him, it could be somebody that's hired to kill him from Giuliani or something like that. So he gets on the machine to look in their eyes. He leans over. The guy takes a knife out, shoves it in his gut under the table. You know, it's just, you know, it makes no sense to me that Bashar Assad's going to practice optometry. It's ridiculous. How could he? What did come out is he's spending time in the UAE and Russia. So I think what he's doing is he's going to the UAE to get away from the very cold weather in Russia. So who's really going to go after him is not Iran. They like them. Giuliani would go after him. And some of the Sunni violent Muslim groups will go after him. So he has to be careful. So the UAE keeps a pretty tight hand on terrorism. They probably hire British MI6 people and SAS people to run their intelligence and train their military special forces, and they probably watch that stuff carefully. So he goes there and probably got himself a nice mansion someplace, and the UAE is probably nice enough to give him a squad of police or something to protect his house when he's there. And he probably goes there to escape the winters. Now, he might not stay there for 3 or 4 months in a row. He might go for a week or two and then another week or two in the winter, or even a third time. And, you know, the people that live in these cold climates, a lot of them get colds and coughs and sore throats, and they get away and they get in the sun, they tend to heal up pretty quick. That's a big thing in New York, is they would, you know, people who work on Wall Street, the wealthier people would, not necessarily the billionaires, just people that make out okay, they would fly down to Miami in the winter or Fort Lauderdale and just lay around on the beach and stay out in the sun hours a day and be in the fresh air, you know, sleeping in the air. The air conditioning would probably go against you down there, but in the wintertime, you probably don't need air conditioning because it's going to be 60s and 70s. It's not going to be 85 or stuff like that, you know. So you don't need to, you probably could sleep with the window open without the air conditioning on, and with the window open on the balcony, you're going to get fresh sea air if you stay on the ocean. And that's going to probably do a lot towards healing you up. So a few days, even people that go for a 4-day weekend seem to recover pretty good from that. When I used to live in New York, I would get the flu, and my friends would get the flu. Usually twice or 3 times in a season. Not, I don't remember getting it really more than 3, but I don't remember not getting it. And you feel, this is before I knew how to use herbs, so you feel miserable, and for about 3 days you feel terrible, and you're tired. You want to take aspirin back then, or Tylenol, and you're taking cough medicine and this and decongestants and all this stuff. Uh, yeah. So that's an interesting thing. I'm pretty sure Israel knows that he's going to the UAE, but Israel got in a lot of problems for doing assassinations in the UAE. They had video footage of the Mossad kids doing it, and oh, the UAE hit the roof. I mean, they hit the roof. So I don't think uh, Israel, number one, I don't think they're after Bashar Assad. Uh, I don't think they're interested in him. I don't think America wants him. Uh, he could probably go to China and North Korea, but what's he going to do there? Probably Belarus, but what's he going to do there? You know, China is a massive language barrier. And it's a culture barrier, like, big time. Well, so's the UAE, and so's Russia, so I don't know. Bashar Assad could function perfectly in the UAE because he knows the culture and he has the language. So he might thrive there. But maybe they're restricting him as to how much time he could spend there. And the other thing is, now that it got out, they may cut it off. I don't know. Don't know. Okay. Giuliani would kill him. All right. So now we're going to talk about the ICJ and the ICC. And I want to get this in so you guys really understand what this is, what these courts are, and how they're tied into the UN. Okay. And I just lost my place. Okay, the ICC is the International Criminal Court. It has rejected Israel's appeal to lift arrest warrants, essentially, for Netanyahu and Gallant. The IC, okay. The ICC, no, I'm sorry, we're going to do the ICJ, International Court of Justice, is tied to the UN. And doesn't judge any individuals. The ICJ, it's the ICC that judges individuals. But I'm going to give you a full breakdown on this, okay? So what the ICJ does is it conducts trials for nations or countries, not people. It's The Hague. It's in The Hague, and they conduct trials like border disputes, um, treaties, and international agreements, diplomatic disputes, alleged violations of international law, and also gives advisory opinions to UN members. It gives no prison sentences out whatsoever, and the enforcement is basically up to the nations complying with their decisions or it being taken to the UN Security Council and them smacking a decision down unilaterally. Now, the ICC is the ones that went after Netanyahu and Galant. Now, let's explain the difference. These are an independent criminal court. It's not actually part of the UN, though it's associated with it. The ICJ, the one that goes after countries, is a lot more closely tied in with the UN than the ICC. So the ICC judges people, not countries. The people that it judges are generally going to be presidents, prime ministers, generals, ministers, congressmen, military leaders, and commanders, okay? What sort of crimes does this ICC court handle? Well, they don't do auto theft or counterfeit money. What they do is genocide, crimes against humanity, war crimes, crimes of aggression. Some of the things they'll go after would be prosecuting a military commander for war crimes, charging a head of state for crimes against humanity. Now, these crimes that Hamas does would constitute war crimes, but they don't bother with them. So Netanyahu, being a head of state, got charged for crimes against humanity or war crimes and stuff like that. Now, the ICC cases can result in arrests. And many powerful countries are in the ICC, and if a political person traverses into their country and they see there's a arrest warrant out from the ICC, they may snatch the person and turn him over to the ICC. Now, to make the ICC have jurisdiction over you, you have to give it jurisdiction by entering into the treaty where you're saying you're going to be under the decisions of this court. Okay? Now, this is the crazy thing here. These are some of the countries, no, I think these are all the countries that never joined the ICC. The United States, Israel, Russia, China, India, Turkey, Saudi Arabia, Iran, Pakistan, Indonesia, and Vietnam, and North Korea. So when you add up the United States, Israel, Russia, China, and India, well, India and China alone are about 1/3 of the world. You add the rest of them in, and you're probably, at least 40% of the world's population is not operating with the ICC. Yet they took it on themselves to issue warrants for Netanyahu and Gallant, even though we never gave them permission to have jurisdiction over us. So Trump put sanctions on them. So this is rather crazy, you would have to say, right? So I know most people don't know the implications of what the difference between these courts are and what they can do and the ins and outs of it, so I thought I would cover that. It's definitely an interesting situation, and it's definitely Muslims in the court trying to use this stupid body of a court against Israel. And that's why Trump put sanctions on him.
No, I feed the parrots in the morning. I'm an early riser. I get up between 5 and 6. That'll work out okay.
Okay. I picked up something that's pretty fascinating about the ultra-Orthodox. They have leaders that they give a special title to. And this will crack you up. The special title they give to these people is Baal Shem Tov. Baal, new word, Shem, Shem, new word, Tov. Tov. Tov means good. Shem is name. Baal is a demon that has control over you, a controlling demon over you. So you're being controlled by a demon that a good name, Shem name, Tov, good. So the other way that they might want you to think it's working is that there's a word like Baal for husband, because the man's the head of the house. There's something like that, but that's Bali. This is Baal. So what it really is talking about is a Baal, a demon. So what they're announcing is this guy is working with the unclean spirits, and they say he has Shem Tov, so they're saying he's a good guy. But I don't buy it. I think it's a deception on the people, and I think that it really is the way we read in the Bible, Baal. It's a very bad demonic thing. Nuts, isn't it? Baal Shem Tov. Very sick. Hamas leader Khalil al-Hayya, the one U.S. officials have been negotiating with, has openly rejected President Trump's proposed peace framework again. Real timing that reaffirming that Hamas will not disarm and will accept no plan that does not guarantee the establishment of a Palestinian state. They sound like Saudi Arabia with the Palestinian state, but they're not going to disarm. Yet they signed an agreement with Trump to do so, and Israel, and they just said, well, no, we're not going to do that. And Trump's afraid of them, and they know Trump's afraid of them, and that's why they did it, because they know Trump won't attack them. This is going to get to the point where people are going to attack homeland U.S., you watch, because of Trump. In a speech this week, Al-Hayya framed terror armament as a right under international law, and insisted Hamas would only consider initiatives that preserve its weapons and advance So he's really insulting Trump, and he's making Trump look like a coward, and that's on purpose because Trump is behaving like a coward. And he said, Gsza said, Witkoff said, Marco Rubio said, each of them perhaps 5 times at least, that they are going to disarm Hamas, and it could go the easy way or the hard way, but they'll disarm them if they have to. And they won't, because Trump's a punk. And the U.S. Is investigating Israel's strike on this Hamas general the other day, and they're saying that it might have violated the ceasefire. So they're saying America is saying they're getting fed up with what Netanyahu's doing. Well, you know, I think Israel has a right to be fed up with what America's doing. Oh, it's Trinidad and Tobago, that country. That's right. I'm sorry. Trinidad and Tobago is the country that's about 7 miles away from Venezuela at the closest point. And Venezuela is accusing them of having a part with America in seizing an oil tanker that they had some tie to. And they were accusing them of participating in the theft of Venezuela oil as tensions in the region increase. Well, I imagine they're accusing them of being an ally of America as well. I mean, not just in the oil tanker, but when America attacks Venezuela, they'll accuse them of war and everything else. But I'm not really thinking that they're going to do anything about it. Now, this is a good one here, talking about America and cover-ups. All right. The state of Washington had an explosion that felt like a 3.0 on the Richter scale, according to the United States Geological Service. Now, they got a reading of a 3.0, apparently. Okay? But you see, when they get a reading, what they get is they get an epicenter and they get the depth of how deep the volcano was. Well, when they said that it was registering like a 3, but it was an explosion, not an earthquake, that's why they said it had no epicenter. They got no reading for the depth. The earthquake wasn't there. An explosion was. And explosions will very commonly make a registration like an earthquake, and they pick it up. So what they did, these crooks at the Geological Service, because the White House or somebody probably started yelling at them, they came back and retracted their first statement and said that it was a 2.9 earthquake. But they failed to provide an epicenter or how deep it was or anything like that. So they just lied. What this explosion was is $1 million question. Could it have been a missile? Yep. I don't know what it was. I mean, I don't want to go around and tell you what it is because I don't know what it is. I don't think anybody was testing a bomb inside the United States. They would do that on a military reservoir, or special area the military has. That's probably 100 miles or something like that. So they would do it far from a populated area, and they would tell the news stations in this area closest to them that they're going to be doing it, Friday at 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. we're testing weapons. So if they feel the ground shake between 11 and 1 on Friday, I'm just making dates up, they know that it was a military testing bombs or something. That was not the case here, so we don't know what the heck happened. Could it have been somebody actually attacked the United States? I'm not leaning heavily on that, but yeah, it's possible. I don't know what it was. I really don't know. It could have been an accidental explosion of something. I don't know. Okay. The Bondi Beach, Australia, the count now seems to be in at 16 dead and 40 injured. The idiot, I think he's the Prime Minister of Australia, says, "Oh yeah, this looks like terrorism." Well, let's see. The guy was wearing an ISIS flag and chanting Al Akbar. Wow, he's a really smart man. Not everybody would pick that up. A regular Sherlock Holmes. Yeah, sure. Um, and what's this idiot Satan bot's reaction to this? Oh, we're going to bear down on gun control. That's the absolute reaction the Muslims want, because then there's going to be less guns on the street and make their job easier. Unbelievable. People should do a vote of no confidence and throw politicians out of office every time they try to tighten gun control. That would stop it. If there was enough people like us, they could just set up tossing on this guy, 5 times a day forever till he resigns. So the guy has no unclean spirits. And then you bind the unclean spirits from being within a mile or 2 miles of him, so they can't see an unclean spirit protecting them, or they won't even know there's any unclean spirit protecting. They think these unclean spirits protect them. Well, they might protect them from a mugger or something like that, but it's pretty minimal protection. They might protect them from another unclean spirit serving person, putting a curse on them that they could protect against. Now, this is a really choice, chewy story. On the 11th of December this year, Ukraine dictator, if you really want to call him a dictator, I'm not so sure he's a dictator, Zelensky had a friend that was a former chief of staff. His name was Andriy Yermak, and his office was searched. And in his office, they found $14 million in cash. Cash. And they found data on bank transfers of $2.6 billion. Billion, not million, $1 billion to offshore accounts, and a stash of passports in his name from the UK, St. Kitts, and the Bahamas. How did he get a UK? I mean, these are probably real passports. The Bahamas probably sold him one legally, and the UK probably did too, and let's keep going. It looks like this guy, this buddy of Zelensky, was a key player in what at least initially appears to some people to be the theft of United States and European countries' money given to Ukraine to fight Russia. Well, obviously, that has to be the case. What I also have heard Zelensky does is he sells weapons. Now, to cut Zelensky all the slack I could ever muster up for him, maybe he confiscates Russian weapons and sells them and pockets the money. I think it's much deeper than that, though, but probably some of that could be going on. What I was told is he sells the weapons that are given to him, like some of these French and UK weapons, these missiles. Small renegade countries might pay, 5 million a missile or more. I don't know. Maybe they pay 20 million. I don't know what they'll pay, but they'll buy them. I don't have any idea what they sell for. I've never bought or sold a missile, so I don't know. So it could also be they're giving them financial aid, and these two guys are pocketing the money. So they're looking at, with this kind of money, why, if they're selling Russian weapons, why don't they use it to buy Europe and American weapons with the money instead of putting it in offshore accounts? So, Trump, I'm sure the CIA and MI6, MI5, whatever, they know all this is going on. And they just left it alone. That's my take. But it'll probably stop. Zelensky, is making himself a fortune with the war. A fortune. But he's delivering. He's hurting Russian forces badly. So do we think that Trump may now strike Venezuela because of the fentanyl thing? Maybe, I don't know. There's just way too much delay with Trump striking Venezuela. I'm not so sure he's going to do it. Too much delay, guys. I don't know what he's up to. The Lebanon army has been touting progress against Hezbollah, and Israel warns the U.S. won't like the upcoming escalation, which means Israel's going to escalate. And as Lebanon's army showcases action against Hezbollah to foreign envoys, showing them that Israel officials warn time is running out, saying Washington, D.C., they mean, seeks So they're saying Washington wants Hezbollah disarmed. You're just flapping your jaw. You're not doing nothing meaningful. And we're going to do a big military operation And America is going to get upset, but they're also upset with you because you're not disarming and the deadline's coming right up in your face. If that makes sense to you, that's what's going on. So Netanyahu is getting Trump mad at him. We killed the general of Hamas a few days ago, and he's saying, well, that was a violation of the ceasefire. Well, okay. So, Israel's saying Trump isn't going to like a regional explosion in the Middle East when we go in and clean out the South and all of Hezbollah's weapons. And it's going to fall down on your heads because you failed to perform like you were told to. And instead, you're making stuff up. Yeah. So I think Israel is scaring them. They're saying, look, we're not buying into your BS story, and neither is America. So get with the program, or here we come. That's what's going on. And they're banking on Trump just giving them another postponement, which sadly is probably going to happen. Trump is really weak. I mean, we've seen a lot of weak. Biden was very weak. Was Obama weak? Yeah, yeah. Okay, an Islamic scholar in Sydney, Australia said this. Jihad is definitely part of our religion. So remember that. All the Muslims have jihad in their religion, according to this Muslim scholar. Remember that. They try to make you think that's not the case. This Muslim scholar seems to think it is. Allah prefers and rewards Muslims who directly fight our infidel enemies more than those who do nothing. This was said in Australia after the massacre. It was said in Sydney, the same part of Australia. So you could imagine how sick these people are in Australia. A bunch of rain clouds are on its way directly to the Gaza Strip and in the south of Israel in general and in the Negev, what the IDF can't finish, it looks like the rain will. The rain has been causing flooding of their terror tunnels. And they're emptying them out. It also caused several buildings to collapse. Because they build them, there's no safety standards with Gaza construction, what I mean? Nothing to speak of. See, Trump just keeps threatening people vividly, like Venezuela, Hamas, Hezbollah, Iran. And what does he do? Nothing. Nothing. And that's, you know, what he does to Putin. And Putin woke up and, Putin goes and sits and listens to Trump and talks to Trump. And then Putin goes and does what he wants. Um, Nobody got any respect for Trump anymore. There's a video of the White House Oval Office I put up this morning, and it shows you Trump standing there in the White House. There's probably 10 people in the White House in the Oval Office, maybe 12, military guys with all the medals and stuff, and they're whispering to each other, and they're saying, "Great job." And Trump is just standing there looking at them like, oh, sort of shades of Biden in a way. Not to say Trump was confused. No, he just had no function. He was just standing there. And then he went and sat down at his desk and he's just looking at everybody having powwows with each other. This is going to cause a lot of problems for Trump. The enemies of America are just gearing up. Likely Iran will try to lead the charge, but I don't know for sure if it's going to be them. Somebody is. The last one to probably go is China. They're the most cautious, and they're very, very careful. They have a very big industrial base. They have a lot of money. They got a lot of banking and all kinds of stuff. And their goal would be to break America with bricks and just bust the dollar out and bring them down that way. But that ain't working too good. Let's take a look at silver and gold today. Those of you that bought silver when I told you to, I didn't demand it. I told you it would be a good investment. Almost tripled your money by now. Almost. More than doubled it. It depends when you bought it, Oh, that was a typo. I don't know how that happened. Let's try again. There we go. So what do we got for our metals? Wow. Okay. Gold is at $44,311. Let's give it up for gold, man. Give it up for gold. And silver. Now silver gets a standing ovation. 63.78 on silver. Excellent. Even platinum went up from the 1600s. It's 1827. Now, I would not buy platinum. I wouldn't buy palladium. I wouldn't buy rhodium. I wouldn't buy any of those. Only silver and gold. Draw the line there. Okay, that's it. So it's got, what's what really, I don't want to say it bothers me, it bewilders me that gold and silver is this high when we don't really have any wars popping off yet. Yet, I said yet. And even a little one like Venezuela is going to bring it up. I would think $75 for silver easy. That's only about $11 more, you know? And, gold 45 to 5,000, depending how scary things get. Now, if he adds Colombia in, even better. Now, when that happens, Iran may try to light up the Middle East minimally with Hezbollah. I don't think Gaza got much left to fight with, and get Yemen to start launching at Israel so things become tense in the Middle East without Iran getting pelted. And now Trump's got to worry about the Middle East and the South American countries. And then Putin starts doing things, more drones enter other countries, stuff to just get America irritated. And America maybe starts worrying more about Europe and, The smartest thing for North Korea, China, Belarus, Russia, and Iran to do is not to start fights in Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, and South America, other than to just drain America's military out of America. And then the sleeper agents start in, and then they come in. And the heck with hitting Taiwan, Japan, and South Korea. Why hit them now, where the thinking would be, let's get rid of America and then we could just knock them out at our leisure? You see? And then Putin says, the heck with fighting Europe. Now let's get rid of America and then I can just take Europe out when I want to. And then Iran says, oh, I'll take Israel out, as well as Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan. They go after the United States goes. That's how they'll think. That's smart money. If they start saying, well, let's engage America in South Korea, Taiwan and Japan, and the European Union and the Middle East, well, then they're putting their military assets at risk over there, and they can't attack the United States. Do you understand? You don't hear any of the preppers and them talk like this. But look at the logic of this. See, when you analyze war, number one, you got to understand, when you start the war, you never know what's going to happen. You just can guess. Okay? Now, nobody knows who's going to come to the aid of Venezuela, if anybody. Maybe nobody would come to their aid, and maybe you would see 40 Russian and Chinese warships show up and tell Trump to knock it off. I don't know. The smart way to do it would be to get America stretched out, shrink the amount of military in the United States as much as you can, and then hit them there. Hit them in the United States. When you take out the Pentagon and all that, you could easily pick off the airplanes and the naval vessels around the world. What are they going to do? They won't know what to do. There's nobody at the Pentagon to talk to anymore. They'll give up the ghost. They won't fight. What are they going to fight for? For who? They won't be getting any paychecks. They know they're going to run out of food. They may not have a chance. The foreign entities that hate America may just attack the warships and kill them, which is likely what will happen. They're not going to spare them. They'll just take them down. What they're going to want to make sure they get rid of are missiles, air defense systems, Navy vessels, aircraft, artillery, tanks, things like that. Foot soldiers with rifles, they don't care about that. What is a foot soldier with a rifle going to do? Nothing. But the scriptures and prophecies say all the soldiers of all the armies get wiped out. So they'll get wiped out. So I don't think they're going to just hit America. They're going to just hit other countries to draw the troops to the other countries, because if they do that, it's going to weaken themselves. And it's not as sound a theory as to hit America first. And you'll get the advantage of surprise there too. I'm getting my emergency water bag things today. They're collapsible containers. It's the first batch I got. I'm going to fill them up. As the Lord said, to get water. We got a lot of canned food, but we don't have a lot of water. We got, some bottles of bottled water laying around, but as to how much water to get, I don't know. I don't know. One of the nice things about having a swimming pool is you've got a very, very, very reasonable supply of water with a swimming pool. But you don't want to keep drinking the chlorine. It doesn't really hurt you that much. So I think you'd probably have to get a filter and get the chlorine out of it. We got a big filter, a big thing that filters it. We also have clay pots we picked up in another country that will filter water. When you just wash the clay off. So you can do that too. It takes several hours to, I don't know if you run like 4 or 5 liters or something like that, till it drips through, and it could take 3 hours or something, But that's okay. Another way to do it, I don't have any money these days, but another way to do it is they sell these machines that take water out of the atmosphere. Israel's really big on this. They use them for the soldiers in the desert, but the machine they use for the soldier in the desert's like the size of a 26-foot truck or something like that. It's a big thing, because they're making water for thousands of soldiers. These other things are probably about like this, and you got to put them by an open window. So you could open up a window and put them right by the window, or better yet, in the window. And they got 2 flavors. One you plug into the wall, and the other one you can charge with solar. So the ideal would be to have, I'm sure the solar one lets you plug it into the wall. I would think it would. So if your power is out, you can run the solar one. Now, these things, even if you're plugging them into the wall, they don't get that much in a day you might get a gallon, something like that. They got different sizes, but and they're a few $1,000s, I think, like 2,000 or something like that. So I don't have that kind of money, but that's an interesting idea if you're running it with solar because you're going to have constant water. If for me and my wife and the dogs, a gallon a day would be getting by. Now, um, you could run these things at night. You just charge your battery during the daytime, you know. But the danger part here is if the electricity's out and it's a cloudy, rainy day, and you're going to lose your battery. Well, what are you going to do for water? So I would think the safe way to play this would be to have two of these machines or buy a bigger one so you can get about 2 gallons a day. That's a lot of water. 2 gallons, because you know you're going to want some water for cooking. Forget taking a bath or washing up with this water. You're not going to do any of that. You let the dogs and the birds drink it, and cooking, and that's it. So if you ran it with, ran two of them, you'd have a sufficient amount of water. So you could skip maybe 2 days with no sun. Still a little dangerous. You want to have more backup. You want to have, I think 3 days without sun would be pretty okay. It's dangerous game you're playing, but it'd be okay. Uh, so that I don't know any other countries that sell it. It may be going around now, but I'd have to check the prices. The prices probably came down. So um, if you're going to run this and count on plugging it into the wall, you're in a bad way. Because if you're not getting water, there's a good chance you don't have electricity either. And that's a dangerous game. You could get into dehydration. So while your water is running, if you give yourself a stash of 25 gallons or something like that, now you're cooking with gas. Now you're okay. All right, I'll be right back in a minute. Quick break. These are collapsible water containers. They last 1 to 2 years, I figure. Prophetic timeline, that's enough. And they're cheap. You can take water bottles when you empty them and fill them, but the problem is if you drink the water out of the bottle, it's going to have bacteria and stuff from your mouth. And if you store it, oh boy, you have trouble. So that's not a great idea. You'd have to rinse it out thoroughly before you filled it up. Probably wash it. That's a big job. And you're going to waste a lot of water doing it. If you get a little notice on you not having water, you can fill your bathtub. And you need a good filter in the house, a good filtering system to clean the bathtub water. And then you can drink it. Because it's going to have a lot of bacteria. Unless you take a bathtub and scrub it, and rinse it, and scrub it, and rinse it, and scrub it, and rinse it, and really clean it and wash all the soap and everything out. And then you can fill it and cover it, and you'd be okay. They sell cans of water, drinking water in cans that are sealed. And they'll probably last 25 years or 50 years. But the way I interpret prophecy, there's no reason to go out that far at all. You don't need that. They sell plastic containers with a handle. They look like a jerry can for a Jeep to carry extra gas. They sell them in 5-gallon and 10-gallon sizes. They're costly. The water might last in one of those for more than 2 years. Maybe not. They have a little hose on it that you can use to fill things, but you got to think this through. 10 gallons is almost 100 pounds. So can you carry this thing around up and down steps at 100 pounds? Okay. You can't hold it with 2 hands. You got to hold it with 1 hand. So that's really for people that go to the gym and lift weights and stuff. And if you're going to go up and down steps with that, you could cause yourself to get hurt. The 5-gallon is going to be about 50 pounds. That's bad enough. In times of stress and things are bad, you don't want to injure yourself, The collapsible ones you can get at about 2.5 gallons. So they're much easier to handle. You just need more of them, but you could easily go up and down steps with that. I'll tell you, a lot of people, I used to do what's called farmer's walk at the gym when I was in pretty good shape, and I used to use about 50 pounds in each hand and walk around in the gym. because that builds your body up pretty good. And that's when I was in shape. I probably would have been able to drag 100 pounds with one hand around a little bit for a while, but you know, that's how you get injuries in the gym. You carry too much, you push too much weight, and you know your shoulder could go, your hip, and you know it's not worth it. You're better off using a lighter weight with more repetitions and sparing yourself the injuries. You know. Or if you use the machines, if the gym has a good machine, you're probably not going to get hurt, even though you're pushing heavy weight. It's when you start using free weights, and a lot of them. Now, I used to use machines, like I used to get on the leg press machine, the very archaic ones where you just put the plates on the thing and you sit at an angle. And I gave a hairline crack to a vertebrae doing this. I used to push over 600 pounds on the leg press, and well, I hurt myself bad. I was in bed for 3 days, and I wasn't right for a long time. My nerve was tingling for 2 years. Oh, it took a long time to get over that. That was a terrible thing. Really bad. In the old days, what they used to do is they would sell the young people a weightlifting guide with dumbbells. And they delivered it through the post office, so you would get 2 dumbbells. And they were, I believe, 5 pounds each. And you had a spring on the handle of the dumbbell that you had to squeeze to push there's like a lever with a spring, and you push it down. So that increased your grip. And what they had the kids do was curls, 100 each hand. You know, go up, press 100 reps each hand. They had them do leg exercises with the dumbbells, but do 100 reps, you know. And guess what? The amount of injuries you'd get were extremely low. And the results you got were quite good. You didn't have the increase in strength as much as you would get with using heavy weights, but you got strong. And you could always bolster that by doing push-ups, pull-ups, stuff like that. Pull-ups require a pull-up bar, but push-ups, nothing. That kind of stuff gets you military tough, not bodybuilder tough, you know. The way they shipped the barbells, the dumbbells, was empty. And you went to the hardware store and you bought shot, you know, little pellets you put in maybe use them like ball bearings, or you use them in shotgun shells. And you fill the dumbbell up with shot, and you get 5 pounds. So the shipping was extremely cheap. So they would sell the kids the the 2 dumbbells and a book that showed the exercises, and it worked. Now, they did have heavy weights and barbells and dumbbells that had a lot of weight in them back then. They weren't always adjustable. A lot of times it was a round ball on either end of a barbell, a metal bar. So it wasn't adjustable. And they had that. And the people had to get, usually they had to get private instruction from somebody how to use it to make it work without wrecking your body. Then Charles Atlas came along, and he was selling the kids just an instruction book. And he was basically doing isometrics, where you push your hands together as hard as you could for a few seconds, 20, 30 seconds, and then rest, and then, that was how you did the exercises, and people built up that way. I think it was slower than the dumbbells. I imagine if they did push-ups, squat thrusts, jumping jacks, and found a place to do pull-ups or chin-ups, and they did sit-ups with weight, holding a weight, they probably got pretty good results. Back then, shipping weights, heavy weights, was a prohibitive thing because I don't think the post office would ship 200 pounds of weights, You'd have to use a freight company, and man, it would be real expensive. What they came up with, I think they had it in the 80s. They were selling plastic dumbbells that were empty. And this is for people that traveled to their job and wanted to work out in the hotel room when most of the hotels didn't have a gym. So they would fill the dumbbells up with water. And you could change the weight of the dumbbell depending how much water you put in it. And they would do the workout in the hotel room with the dumbbells. But today, the tremendous amount of hotels have a gym. Not a good gym, a little gym, but a little gym is a gym, And I did that, but they also had barbells with water too. You could get, but I don't think anybody would travel with those. And you still need a real strong bar, I knew a guy that was a wrestler, which is an actor. It's not real wrestling. He was, phony wrestling, which the only real wrestling is done like at the college level or something like that. So he would do um, basically bench presses and squats. And I think he did press. But I believe what I was told is just bench press and squats. And that's what the wrestlers do, and that's it. Because they're just basically looking to get their strength up. They're not looking to cut up. They want to be big, but they don't try to get cut up. They want that body weight, and strength. That's what they do. But it's interesting how they used to do it. If you just take 2 pails of water, maybe wrap some rags around the little thin handle on the pail, and fill them up with water and just hold them and walk around, you'd be shocked at what kind of workout you get. I mean, you got to do a lot of repetitions if that's all you're going to do. But you're going to get pretty overall strong. And you could curl the pail of water if you're strong enough. If you're not strong enough, there's an easy remedy. Just dump the water out till it works where you can do it, right? And you can hold the pails out. That'll get you very strong. 10 seconds is a long time. Even if you only have the pail full of, 1/8 or something, it's still a long time. And you can hold them to the side. You can pull them up and down. It's all kinds of stuff you can do. You don't need the gym, The nice thing about the gym is, it's fun. It gets you out of the house. You can make friends there, and you can move heavy weights around relatively safely. The best way to build up is with free weights, but free weights is absolutely the most dangerous way to do it. And a lot of these bodybuilders and professional athletes are taking various medicines, pain medicines, anti-inflammatories, and different things, because they hurt themselves so many times. So you're getting layoffs, you're taking off, I gotta stop for, the doctor will tell you stop for 10 days or 2 weeks, and most of the guys will stop for 3 or 4 days. They get addicted to working out. And they don't let themselves fully heal. This is rather universal, and they just keep pushing it, Like with running, they statistically found out that you're going to get better gains, better results, and be healthier if you run every other day, not every day. But I was an avid runner for years, and try to get me to stop, because you get hooked on the runner's high. See, I wouldn't get hooked on drugs, but I did get hooked on the runner's high. You feel really good for the whole day, usually, And you can eat whatever the heck you want. If you're going to run at least 3 miles in 24 minutes, I'm telling you, you could eat anything. What do I mean, anything? Eat a whole large pizza by yourself, have an ice cream chaser. I mean, just about anything you could think of you could eat and you won't get fat. It's amazing, And if you bump it to 4 miles, and you just go 32 minutes on 4 miles, oh, you'll have to eat a lot of carbs to keep your weight up. That's what happens. Is if you don't stop porking out, you know, you lose body weight. You start looking like a skinny little rail. You know, your waist goes to 31 inches or something at 6 feet, and you know it's too much. You know, so you got to eat. Now, running with weightlifting is the ultimate. You know, but I know guys that would go to the gym and they would run a mile. You know, no, that's good. That's good cardio, but you need more than that. You need to run 3. Um, I used to go to this gym when I was in graduate school. The guy's name was Schultz, who was in the Mission District. What did he call it? He was an Olympic coach for American Olympic team, and he opened up a gym. He was a reasonably friendly guy. And I went there. I used to work out there, and they used to hate bodybuilders, but this was in San Francisco, so you had professional bodybuilders coming through all the time that would be there for various reasons, and they would. Um, he had the best place to work out. You know, the bodybuilders were really focused in Los Angeles. That's where Arnold was working out, and a lot of others, Katz and many others were down there in LA. And San Francisco back then didn't have any real bodybuilder gym. This place was for people that wanted to lift heavy, you know. It wasn't like a Gold's Gym. It was like serious workout. So I used to work out there, but I would never push heavy weights because I was a young guy in my 20s, and I knew not to push the real heavy weights, you know. But I would do presses with 125, um, but I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't do very often. Usually I'd use 85, 90 pounds, you know. I would do curls with substantial weight, you know, and I would be moving heavy weights, and I would see guys jump on the pull-up bar, and they would do 12 pull-ups with 20 pounds of weights hanging off their belt. And, you know, I'm throwing heavy weights around, and I get on the bar, and I can maybe get 3 or 4 out. You know, so I used to scratch my head and say, what kind of conditioning am I really getting from weights? You know, see, the pull-ups is military tough, and they have their own kind of tough, and they do use special forces do use weights. They use kettlebells and all kinds of other stuff, but they do more than just weights. That's an interesting thing, you know. So I don't know. I think that, you know, I mean, I used to be able to get maybe 50 push-ups, decent push-ups, pretty good ones, you know. That's like the most I would ever be able to get. It would be like 50. Usually I would do 30 or 35 and stop. I wouldn't go up that high. But that'll get you some pretty darn good strength too. I used to do sit-ups in massive amounts. Of course, I was martial arts, and I wanted to, you know, if you do like at least 150 sit-ups and leg raises, you can usually sustain the blow to the stomach pretty easily without much trouble. Like you could even walk into him sometimes, and you could hurt the other guy's wrist and buckle his wrist or something. Um, and that's after doing it year after year after year, not just for 6 weeks. You know, you got your abdominal gets really strong, and it gets sort of immune to getting kicked or hit. Now, somebody who really lays a powerful blow on you, you're going to cave. But that's, you know, if you got construction boots on and you lay with some sort of heavy boots and you lay a kick on the guy like a kung fu style where you're using the heel and the whole plate of the boot, but predominantly the heel. You're not going to hold up against that. Even somebody that does 800 sit-ups isn't going to hold up against the heel of the boot coming down on you. You're going to have trouble. If it hits the ribs, they're going to break. You're going to have a lot of trouble. So you could get sneakers that look like New Balance or something like that. I've got them in the house, and they got a metal plate in the toe. Construction workers use them, and they got a metal plate in the toe. And you just use a kick with the point. You got to modify your kicking not to use the ball of the foot, use the point, where you push your foot down, and you're hitting the guy basically with brass knuckles for your feet. It's pretty hard to take that, because it's going to penetrate in. It's going to be hard to hold on. But somebody punching you in the stomach, just a lot of leg raises, which gets the lower abdominals, and a lot of twisting and sit-ups, and when you're standing up, you got to bend down and touch your toes, go across, right hand, left foot, lots of reps of that, like 50, 100 reps of that also. You do all these stomach routines, and your back muscles get strong, and your stomach gets strong, real strong. And, if someone comes in and gives you an elbow in the abdomen with their whole body behind it, you could still hold your own like that. You could still hold up. Boxers do insane stomach routines. They go worse than me. I mean, I used to get on the sit-up board on incline all the way and take a 20-pound plate and hold it and do sit-ups. But they go more extreme than that. They take medicine balls and drop them on their stomach. And that's to stimulate getting punched with a boxing glove. And I never bothered doing that. I never had a desire to cripple myself or cause myself to go to the hospital or have surgery or anything like that. But they do that. And I never even tried it. But I imagine that they get a very heavy-duty immunity from getting punched or resistance. There's people that would practice headbutting, right? And okay, so I got into it, and I said, well, I'll practice headbutting, and I had this, it was a punching bag, but it was a Thai kickboxing bag. It was a good 6 feet long, about that wide. It weighed 125 pounds. I remember it was a nightmare. I was trying to string it. You have to hold it up and then get the thing to hook, for the chain to hang that, By myself, I was doing it, so it was pretty, I was able to do it, but it was pretty tricky. Okay, so I got in front of this thing and I started practicing headbutting, right? I did it about 2 times, and I said, oh my gosh, I'm not going to do this. You got to be out of your mind. You're banging your head. Forget that. I'm not going to practice that. I mean, if you want to practice it without, like shadow boxing, without hitting anything, you're never going to get that good at it. You could do that, but man, I wouldn't do it. I wasn't going to sit there and bang my head against one of these bags just to see, You see, I never really wanted to pay the price of crippling myself, But there are people that do it. They will do things like that. They're nuts, They're nuts. You gotta have a balance, But years ago, when I was working in the world, I wanted to get one of these things, but I didn't have room for it. I had plenty of money. It was a boxing ring. And in the ring, it had like dummies that were like on a auto timer computer thing, and they had gloves, and they would throw punches at you. and you could punch it, and they had them in different parts of the ring. It was about $4,000 or $5,000, and I had no room for it, but I always wanted to get it. I thought that was a really great way to work out without a partner. When you work out with a partner, the problem is you get used to the partner. I imagine what pro boxers do is they have sparring partners. They probably have, three or four, so they get different approaches. You know, you know, with this thing you could program it so it would do different intensity, different. It was really a good idea, but I never got it. One of the things I regretted, and the guy went out of business. Nobody was buying it. Nobody had room for it. The gyms and stuff weren't going to buy it because it would break, because it would be getting used all day long. If I used it, I'd use it for 15, 20 minutes a day. It would last for years, but the gym, it would probably be gone in a month or two. I missed that, and I was going to buy a bunch of old Nautilus machines, and I never had a garage. I had a nice garage that would hold them, but I had a lot of Mercedes and Porsches and BMWs that needed to be in the garage. So I never did it. And I had a backyard with concrete area, and I was thinking of putting them out on there and just leaving them out in the rain covered with plastic sheeting. And I thought about it and thought about it, and then I realized that it wouldn't work. They would rust, and the seats were padded, and that would go away, and that couldn't be. I always wanted to do that. I wanted to get about 8 of those machines, which is what the guy that invented them said you need 8. And if you have 8 of them, you could get a full workout. You would go and you'd do a set of 8 to 12 repetitions to point of failure. So in other words, if you're on the hand curl machine, the arm curl, you would be doing them enough where you couldn't go and finish the repetition, and it was no more than the number 12 repetition. If you were able to do 12, the next day you'd go to maybe 13 or 14 where failure was. The next day increase the weights, so you can't get that high up. And then you got off the machine and immediately got on another machine. So he figured if you did that on 8 machines, you didn't need to do cardio. Was he right? Yeah. What was wrong about that? Arnold Schwarzenegger went to train with this guy in South Africa. And the guy was putting Schwarzenegger through the routine, but he had more than 8 machines. He had about 15 or 20. But he wouldn't run you through all of them. He'd run you through 8 at a day. And Arnold was throwing up. It was so hard, he was vomiting. So he just said thank you. His name was Arthur Jones, the guy. He said thank you, and he just went home. He wasn't going to do it. Then he trained a guy named Casey Viator in the 70s, and Casey didn't use anything but these machines. Of course, he was pumping the steroids like no tomorrow. And he won Mr. America or Universe or one of those titles, and promoted this type of machine. Now, did he only use those machines? How do you know? He said he did, but how do you know? How do you know? He had machines for your neck. He had machines for your stomach. He had machines for your back, for your hips, for your legs, for the front of your legs, for the back of your legs, for your buttocks. The girls in the gym used to go crazy with the buttock one. But most of them didn't use it right. The buttock one, if I remember correctly, you were laying on a bench, and you had to keep your abdomen flat on the bench while you were doing a reverse curl laying down with your feet. And that was hard as heck. And I used to see people do it, and they'd be having their abdomen arched 2-3 inches off the bench, and they're wasting their time. Oh, they work on the legs. It'll help the legs, but they were wasting their time. It's very difficult to do this correctly. It was difficult. Not easy. Not easy at all. So if you really were dedicated to his machines and you worked it hard, you had to work out in 20, 30 minutes maximum. And if you could hold up with the not throwing up, which you just slow yourself down a little, you were able to get yourself a reasonable amount of cardio during your workout. And that would, if you could have the room, you could get yourself up to 12 or 14 machines and use different machines on different days. So if you had enough machines, you could have a leg day, then you could have an upper body day, and but you needed a lot of machines for that. And when he was rolling high, he must have had over 20 machines. And the machines it went out of style by 1990-ish. He died sometime, I don't know, in the 80s. By about 1995 or so, it was out of fashion already. It came in around 67, around there, 67, 68. And it had a good 20-year run, and then it fell out of fashion, There were other machines being made that would work. They were probably not as good as his, but they were good enough to work, and they were much cheaper. And I always wanted a set of those, but it never happened. It never happened. They're probably still floating around. One day you might be able to get them, But you need to have a pretty good sized garage to set 12 of these things up. You have to, you put them next to each other. They're just really, really, I think they were the best. But anyway, let's see what's doing in the live stream. So let's just do a review of Revelation 18, which I think is the attack on America, on Washington, D.C. Pretty sure of it. We'll go through it. Revelation 18:1. And after these things I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lighted with his glory. Is this the glory of God of Israel, Michael? I don't know one way or the other. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitation of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. When it says the birds, it means demons. It's the way they're saying demons. Okay, so this probably happened a long time ago. All right. So it could have been Michael, it could not, maybe it wasn't. It doesn't tell us, so it sounds like him, but I don't want to jump to conclusions, so I'll just say I don't know, because I really don't. I can't prove it. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So this would be after World War II, I would think, okay? And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. The merchants of the earth are waxing rich selling stuff to America. And I heard, now that's not the America today. Let's say go back before 2008 with a pre-Obama, America was a very prosperous country and regular people were prospering. And I heard another voice in heaven saying, "Come out of her, my people, that ye be not partakers of her sins, and that you receive not of her plague." So this is obviously beyond a shadow of a doubt to me, Jeremiah 50:51, the daughter of Babylon, where the Israelites, lost tribes and non-lost tribes, and all the true believers in Yeshua are called out before it's completely destroyed to come on the Exodus to Israel. Okay, they're almost identical words. So that sets the stage, of course, for being daughter of Babylon, America. For her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her lawlessness. Reward her even as she rewarded you. What's the most important thing of the Lord? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, your soul, your body, your mind, with everything, right? And for her sins have reached unto heaven, and God hath remembered her lawlessness. Well, they certainly don't love the Lord, and they certainly don't even fear the Lord, right? Okay. What's Trump doing in the Middle East? Well, he's making sure Israel doesn't get Gaza back. That would solve the problem. Look, you gave the land to them and they attacked you and raped your women and killed your babies and burned people alive. Go take the land back and keep it for yourself. Oh no, Trump won't do that. No. Reward her even as she rewarded you, and double unto her, double according to her works, in the cup which she hath filled, which she filled to her double, fill it. So she's getting a double shot of bad stuff, the cup of the wrath of the Lord, you could say. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. That's America. We're talking after World War II, like in the 50s. Everybody was buying cars back then. Other countries didn't have cars, they're riding bicycles. Everybody's living great in America. Steak and potatoes, pizza, vacations. Nobody was worrying about, they were trying to scare us with nuclear war. But people were basically quite relaxed, running around. Disneyland opened up in the 50s. They had amusement parks, they had beaches, resorts, fishing resorts, lake resorts, ocean resorts, blah, blah, blah. America was the place. Okay? People lived good. Okay? How much, we had the television, we had the motion picture industry, we had the music industry. You had Elvis the Pelvis, and you had going forward from there. How much Elvis the Pelvis was in the early 50s. He was floating around. And then you had others. You had Fats Domino and a lot of other people that were making out a lot. Louis Armstrong, Ella Fitzgerald, and all these characters. Benny Goodman goes back to World War II, and Duke Ellington and a lot of them. Okay, how much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. Well, people lived well. 50s, 60s, 70s, even the 80s, in the late 80s, they were still living well. Okay? Even in the 90s. It went on up until Obama. so much torment and sorrow give her, for she hath in her heart, for she saith in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow as in married to the land. And in other words, I'm never going to leave America, I'm never going to lose it. And shall see no sorrow. Yeah, right. That's what they think. Therefore, right now they're at the point where they're scared to death of everything. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning. Well, they're related, of course. Death and famine. In one day, famine. Okay. And she shall be utterly burned with fire. For strong is the Lord God who judges her. Well, in Jeremiah 50:51, I will kindle fires in and about your cities. I still see every day fires in Southern California. I believe every day, or maybe 6 out of 7 days. It's still going on. We're going to be at winter in, 3 days, December 20th? And you're still getting the fires every day. And the earthquakes, oy, Gewalt, there's so many earthquakes going on. And we're getting multiples, like in a few hours you see 4 earthquakes. Read my Telegram. I put the larger earthquakes up in Telegram every day for a reason, so people would understand that's a sign of the end times. And it's in place. Therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine. And she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is Adonai Yehovah Elohim. I believe it says Adonai Yehovah, or we'll say Lord God, who judgeth her. And the kings of the earth, the leaders of the countries, right? So they don't have prime ministers and emirs and presidents. They say kings here in the old days, right? The kings of the earth who have committed fornication with the unclean spirits and lived deliciously with her, with the whore of Babylon. And we've got a lot of them. They have multiple palaces, multiple yachts, multiple aircraft, more servants than they know the names of, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. Standing afar off for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babylon. Well, it really says Babylon, Babel in the text, which means confusion. In the original, it never said Babylon, it always said Babel, which means confusion. Okay, standing afar off for the fear of her torment. Wow. Okay. Saying, Alas, alas, that great city Babel, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. So get this down. It will be fast and sudden. Okay? Could it be a missile? Yeah. Could it be fire and brimstone from Jehovah? Yeah. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her, for no man buyeth their merchandise anymore. They have an audience selling all this fine goods to the rich people in America. It used to be that, you go back in the 60s, people were buying all leather shoes. They were buying all wool coats, wool hats, solid wood furniture. Getting the idea? Okay. The merchants of gold and silver, that's jewelry, I would say, not gold bullion, and precious stones, that's ruby, emerald, sapphire, that kind of thing, and of pearls and fine linen. That's clothing, probably. They might have linen bed sheets, but that'd be a pretty cold bed sheet. Maybe nice in the winter, in the summer. And purple and silk and scarlet and all thine wood. That could be rare woods, and all manner of vessels of ivory and all manner of vessels of most precious wood and of brass and iron and marble. Now, we don't know too much about ivory, but, people probably have bowls and glasses made out of ivory and different things, I guess. They used to make houses out of ivory, Solomon's day houses. And they made houses out of cedar wood because cedar wood, the bugs don't come in when you got cedar wood. So today, rich people have a closet made out of cedar wood. I have pieces of cedar wood that I bought years and years and years ago. You put them in the drawer with your clothes, and that tends to keep the bugs out, moths and other bugs, without putting rotten chemicals in there, like camphor, which is probably bad for you. The cedar wood's not bad for you. It's cedar wood, regular wood. And cinnamon and odors, that's incense, perfumes, and ointments, that's, moisturizer creams, get rid of your facial wrinkle cream, stuff like that. Frankincense, that's a good healing herb. It has a modern name that escapes me, and wine and oil, fine flour and wheat, and beasts and sheep, those are animals to eat, I guess, and horses, they got horses for millions of dollars, and chariots, and slaves and souls of men. Slaves, think of Epstein. And the fruits that thy soul lusteth after are departed from thee. See, they'll buy fruits any time of the year in the rich stores where the wealthy go, because they import them from different parts of the world. So you could have peaches and cherry right now if you want. You pay the price, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. The merchants of these things, which were made rich by her, shall stand afar off for the fear of her torment, weeping and wailing. The wailing is mourning and the weeping is crying because they lost their market. And saying, alas, alas, that great city. Now we're talking about Washington, D.C. That great city that was clothed in fine linen and pure, and purple. A city doesn't get dressed, so this is allegorical, okay? That was clothed in fine linen. It means the people were wearing fine linen. And purple, which was expensive dye for your clothes back then. And scarlet, ditto for that. And decked with gold and precious stones and pearls. That's jewelry, wearing jewelry. For one for in 1 hour shall great riches come to naught. In 1 hour. And every ship every ship master, every guy that runs the ship, I gotta find my verse, the thing moved on me. And in 1 hour so great riches is come to naught, and every shipmaster and all the company in ships and sailors, and as many as trade by sea, stood afar off. And then that could be there, stood afar off, could be there out in the water, and cried when they saw the smoke of her burning. So that's a smoke, fire. Could be missiles, could be the Lord did it with fire and brimstone, like the days of Sodom, saying, what city
Can you find me any
is
information about how the country of Israel is disseminating the water
is like unto this great city? It's a city, see? You're not talking about the country. Now, the daughter of Babylon, it says in Jeremiah 50:51, it has cities, plural, in it. So, this great city is not the daughter of Babylon. It's a city.
Can you find me
And they cast dust on their heads, that's mourning, and cried, weeping, wailing, saying, alas, alas, that great city wherein were made rich all that had ships in the sea by reason of her costliness, for in 1 hour is she made desolate. 1 hour, but she is Washington, D.C. Rejoice over her, rejoice over her, thou heaven, and you holy apostles and prophets, for God hath avenged you on her. Now, they're being told by an angel, the apostles and prophets, to rejoice. So this is really getting rid of some bum. And a mighty angel took up a stone like a great millstone and cast it into the sea, saying, thus with violence shall that great city Babylon be thrown down, and shall be found no more at all. Does it sink in the water? Because it could, I don't know. Never thought of it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think so. We don't pick that up in Isaiah 47 or Jeremiah 50:51. But maybe, because it does have the waves wash over her, and that would put the fires out because the animals would be living there. So maybe it does. This is the flame getting put over the land. and the voice of harpers and musicians, and of pipers and trumpeters shall be heard no more at all in thee, and no craftsman of whatever craft he be shall be found any more in thee. It sounds like the city's gone. And the sound of a millstone shall be heard no more. It shall be heard no more at all in thee. And the light of a candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee, for shall be heard no more in thee, for thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Well, the great businessmen in America are witches and pervs and Epsteinites. You like that, Epsteinites? And yeah, they're garbage. And they run it on witchcraft, you know. And in her was found the blood of prophets and of saints and of all that were slain upon the earth. Now, we go back to 17 to get a little help here. We'll go to the last verse in 17. Well, let's go to verse 16. Let's go to verse 15. And he said unto me, the waters which thou sawest, where the whore sitteth, are peoples and multitudes and nations and tongues. That's what the water represents, the people, the varying different people. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, now the whore rides on the beast earlier in Revelation 17, these shall hate the whore, that's America, Washington, D.C., really. It's Washington, D.C., and shall make her desolate desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh and burn her with fire. Okay, so by fire we know she gets destroyed. For God hath put in their hearts to fulfill his will in the 10 horns, and to agree and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. So the 10 nations are going to hook up with the beast at the head of them and finish off the daughter of Babylon, America. Now, the next verse, 18 rather. And the woman which thou sawest is that great city which reigneth over the kings of the earth. The woman, the whore, is the great city that reigns over the kings of the earth. That's Washington, D.C. It's not Moscow, it's not Beijing, it's not Paris, it's not London. It's Washington, D.C. All the nations come to America in the UN in New York. They meet in America. That's the great voice. Okay? That's the hammer of the whole earth. Not today anymore, but it was. But it's on the decline, heavy duty, and fast. Now, the who is the woman? Well, it's not hard to figure it out. I'll do a picture for you. Uh, we'll do an illustration.
And the water table on the Canary as of this rainy season.
I've done this before, but it's always fun to do it again. I'm not going to go through a whole diatribe on it, but I'll give enough of it to give you the idea. That's Columbia Motion Pictures icon. Okay, a flat-chested woman that could be either sex, sitting on a pedestal, elevated up, and holding the light. Come to the light, the torch, the light, right? I don't know what sex this thing dressed like a woman is, but it doesn't have breasts. I'm not discriminating against anybody by saying that. I'm telling you what it is, okay? Now, this goes like this. What is Washington, D.C.? That's the great city. What is its name? Washington, District of Columbia. Is it part of the 50 states? It is not. Is it the state, the city that runs the whole United States? It is. It's a city. Is it administered by the federal Congress? Yes. It's Columbia, the District of Columbia. That's this woman, Columbia. And that's the Whore of Babylon, Columbia. And they have the city, Washington, D.C., named after her. Now, where else do you see Columbia in America as a female figure that's flat-chested? I'm looking for a decent picture here without a lot of luck. Let's see if this one, let me change, hold on. Here's Columbia again, called the Statue of Liberty. That's a graven image. Same flat-chested woman, wearing a crown, holding the torch, the light, come to me, I'm the light, on elevated up on pillars, and also having the pillars all around it, which is demonic from the Roman and Greek temples. Okay. And that's also the woman on the roof of the Capitol building holding a sword. That's your female Columbia, and that's what the capital of the United States is named after. The motion picture house Columbia gives it away. And there you have it. And for these secrets, idiots sell themselves out to Satan for eternity in hell. Unbelievable. These are the deep things of Satan. That's so freaking absurd. Satan's a moron. If Satan wasn't a moron, would he try to do would he have ever done what he tried to do? Of course not. He's a moron. And a third of the angels went with him. They're running around on earth, unfortunately. Rotten as the day is long. Okay. So now you know what we're talking about here. Is it the Lord that burns her up with fire and brimstone? Or perhaps, work with me here, is it really the fact that China or Russia gave Orishnik or Orishnik type missiles, or Iran did, to Venezuela, and he hits America, Washington, D.C.? an Arishnik could get all the way up to Boston. That's about roughly about a 7-8 hour car ride from Washington, D.C. Oh, that's quite a bit south. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. I don't know. But I'll also, when I say I don't know, I'm also going to be like Alfred E. Newham in a Mad Magazine. What, me worry? I'm with Jehovah. All things lead to good for those who love the Lord, including Arishniks or anything else. You should be in the What Me Worry Club too. Why worry? Be like a little child and let your Heavenly Father take care of it.
Take your time outside.
Let your big brother Yeshua take care of it. Let the glory of God of Israel take care of it. Let the two witnesses take care of it. Just kick back and rest in the Lord. Like a little kid, you come into the kingdom of heaven. You just let your father take care of your problems. Some bullies are chasing you. Let your father and your big brothers take care of it. They'll give them a whooping. They won't survive. That's all. Think your two witnesses as your big brother. Apostle John as your big brother. The anointed prince as your big brother. The glory of God of Israel it's not appropriate to call him your big brother, but he operates like a big brother. Remember, he tells you to run through the Mount of Olives and splits it open. In the future, you will. That's kind of big brotherish behavior. Come, run through here. I got you 6. Go through here. And then what happens to those that chase you? Well, it kind of becomes another Red Sea incident of a sort with the Egyptians. They don't live through. So, what me worry? Why? What are you going to do about it? So, today's theme, what me worry? Or in better English, why worry? Why worry? What do you got to worry about? You got a bunch of stone cold idiots with ice running through their veins, running all the countries of the world, transactional morons, liars that probably believe their own lies. Their days are up. Look at the level of spiritual warfare we use now. That's a sign of the end, I would say. The sooner that happens, the sooner you're going on the exodus to Israel, stopping in the wilderness. I don't know how much time you'd have to get out, but I would think that's the knock knock, let's pack and get out of here quick, that's what I think. So when you see that, grin, think falafel in this hand, shawarma in this hand, latkes in front of you, And oh say can you see will be, oh say that used to exist that is no more forever, That's it. No more flag with 50 pentagrams on it, demonic pentagrams. No more, we wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. No more of that, Instead of that, Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. What are you going to have? We wish you a Merry Christmas. Let it snow, let it snow, let it snow, or the Shema. What do you want? I'll take the Shema. I don't need to. We wish you a Merry Christmas, I don't need Halloween. I don't need Thanksgiving. where they celebrate massacring the North American Indians. They were probably lost tribes and trying to tell all the children how nice they were towards the Indians they declared wars on and massacred. You know, I don't need to hear that. Um, no. Satan was around when the lost tribes pulled out, right? So he knows who they are. Do you think it's possible he got the Americans to kill the North American Indians because he knew they were lost tribes? Is that hard to swallow? That should go down pretty easy. Can I guarantee that's the case? No. Do I think it is? I personally do. Can I prove it with the scripture? No. Can't. So it's hard now. It's hard all over the world, you know. It's hard. It's hard. All right. Um, I'll get a prayer out for us, and I don't think we have any more prayer requests today. Oh, that right side hip thing seemed to clear up. Thanks for praying about that. And I got some more help from people uh, meeting the bills, and I'm getting very close to where I need to be. But I'm not quite there yet, but I'm pretty close. So I still need a little bit more of a push before the end of the month so I can pay all the bills. I got to do 3 months of rent, and I got to pay electric. I got to pay the taxes because in Israel, the tenants pay the taxes, and we had some repairs, and I think we still have another one little repairs that we got to do. And what else? You got to eat. Got to pay the other bills, and we got different internet lines here. Of course, I got backup for the internet. We got to pay those. We got cell phones. We got to pay. All kinds of stuff. We got like everybody. Car insurance. Well, I think we pay that by the year. I think there's paid up. And we get the privilege of paying $8 a gallon for gasoline. Isn't that nice? Okay, so I'll get a prayer up. Let's go. My Heavenly Father, Yehovah, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers that we would have your strength, stamina, and endurance, and we would have your healing and recuperative power flowing through us, and we keep getting healed things that need to be healed in our body, and we'd be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole, and our animals and pets would be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray we have no accidents, no tickets, no breakdowns, no getting stopped, stuck, or stranded with any vehicle or mode of transportation, aircraft, train, or anything, bicycle, motorcycle, whatever, boat. And I pray that we don't get scammed, frauded, ripped off, robbed. I pray we get all our deliveries, things that we order to be delivered, come in one piece intact. Pray we have no trouble with the delivery companies and the drivers doing deliveries in general. And I pray that we would have adequate finances and extra. And I pray that we would learn the Bible better, know the Bible better. We would have your Spirit poured out on us, and we would walk and operate in the gifts of the Spirit, and we would preach the true gospel followed by your word, and that we would be able to meet together so Yeshua can be there amongst us, and we would have a place to bring new believers and people that just came to the real gospel. Maybe they've been believers for decades, but they just came to the real gospel. Uh, and I pray we would all bear much good fruit, and we would have good health and happiness, and you would lift from us any of the works from the unclean spirits and those that serve the unclean spirits. And I pray that the unclean spirits and those that serve them wouldn't be able to surveillance us or see inside our houses or in our vehicles. And they wouldn't be able to surveillance us or any of our vehicles or transportation modes or animals and pets. And we would have favor with people at work and in the neighborhood and with our family, and we wouldn't have problems with them. And we wouldn't have any problems. You would lift off us any problems from employers, co-workers, neighbors, corporations, businesses, any government, banks, anything would lift off of us. So all their evil works towards us would be worthless, and I pray we don't get discriminated against or picked on for being believers. And I pray that for the peace of Jerusalem, and I pray all this for all the true believers, me and my wife and their families and households. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and I send my shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach. And thank you for helping me, guys. I just need a little bit more, and then I'll be good for the rent. That's 3 months of one-time nightmare. Oh, I went over today, over 3 hours. Wow, I'm sorry, that's too long. All right, so that's it, guys. I hope you got something out of this, and I'm out. Thank you. And you could always write me. My email is in the description box, all the way down at the bottom. It's israelgiving with the number 7 at gmail.com. And you can also get a hold of me, and we could set up, if you need it, we could set up a talking real time, like on WhatsApp or some other device we could use, which is free. All right, I'm out. Thanks, guys.